Welcome to the Spiritable podcast. My name is Ben.
And my name is Luke. On this episode, we had on our extremely, very most special friend, Chad. Chad, tell the people what we talked about this episode.
Today we talked about some fun get-to-know-me questions, get-to-know-them questions. We jumped into some salvation talk, what Judaism thinks, what Christianity thinks, what the new church thinks, what we think personally. It was a good old time. Christianity, Judaism, podcast. Keep on watching.
Hashtag pod.
Hashtag SwickPod.
Welcome to the Spiritable podcast. I'm Ben.
And I'm Luke. Basically, we started this podcast as a place to bring spirituality down to earth. For a whole myriad of reasons, talking about your faith, belief, religion, it's kind of a minefield, but we don't always think that's the best barrier to keep up. So personally, we're coming at this from a perspective of Christianity with a little bit of a twist, and you can check out episode 9 for more on that.
What we'd like to do is bring on guests with a whole variety of different spiritual backgrounds to help challenge our own beliefs, and hopefully to learn something together about how to be useful people. So thanks for joining us on Spiritable.
We are here with Chadley Goldsmith, who we had on an earlier episode around Christmas time where we talked about Hanukkah and Christmas. That was a fun one. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little intro here and you can fill in the blanks with anything that I miss.
Cool.
Sound good?
Sounds
Give a quick hello to the people before.
Hello to the people.
Very nice. All right, Chad, you are a fan of Wu-Tang Clan.
It's true.
You can eat a pizza in a whole sitting.
That's also true.
You have seen The Emperor's New Groove over 300 times.
Over 300, yes.
And you're also one of the most wholesome, sweet baby boys I have the pleasure of knowing.
You're
decidedly
that's wonderful.
True. Decidedly
Thank you.
True.
Thank you.
So I went and rewatched some of our last episode to get more of your spiritual, religious background. So I thought I'd just kind of go over that real quickly to catch everyone up to speed.
Sure.
So you were raised in a conservative Judaic household,
yep,
and kind of steadily identified more and more with that until you went to such a point that you went to rabbinical school in Israel for almost a year.
Yeah,
almost a year.
Wow.
And at the same time, you talked about this before. As your spirituality and religious identity was kind of rising, you also delved more into a little bit of abuse or substance abuse.
Yeah.
So now you're in recovery and have been clean for 4.5 years?
4.5 years, yeah.
4.5 years. And I remember you saying last time that as you were in recovery, you started identifying more with a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And are now sort of identifying as Jewish, as spiritual. And I think last episode you said that you were kind of just still figuring out your kind of spiritual identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I wonder how has that evolved since December when we last
It's definitely still a journey of my idea of Judaism is this very strict ritual observance, observe the commandments, the mitzvot. We were talking about a covenant a little bit ago, observing all that stuff, and that's what makes you a Jew. And then with sort of what I feel now, this spiritual identification with Judaism, finding what that means to me. I was listening to this podcast with this rabbi, and he was talking about his Jewishness, and it's if he's asked how to explain his Jewishness, and it's it's really hard to explain, but it's also something that regardless of the last time I went to synagogue or eat kosher or any of that kind of stuff, it's sort of taking it's if you have purple and it's separating the red and the blue, you just can't, my Jewishness is just that, it's a part of me, and which is pretty cool. So it's, yeah, I'm in this stage of figuring out what it means for Chad to be spiritual.
Yeah.
And yeah, Judaism's the foundation of that.
So is it more you still identify with the cultural Jewishness?
Absolutely, yeah.
More than the actual practices? Yeah,
the practices, I think, for me right now, don't fit in my life, some of them. And the cultural significant, the meaning behind them, for I get all that, and I jive with that still. And yeah, it's sort of this there's all these working pieces. There's what I was raised with. There was what I found when I got more religious and was in rabbinical school. There's this not religious spiritual higher power I found in recovery. There's the spiritual practices I found through men's work and stuff. And how does all of that mix, and what does all of that mean as someone who was by the book, orthodox, like pray 3 times a day, Torah study 8 hours a day. What does that mean now? And it's like a really fun,
quite a concoction.
Yeah, it's a fun journey. Some days I feel like a lot more connected to Judaism than others, but the sort of like the whole like color analogy, like it's always there. Like it's like for sure a part of me, and it's like the foundation, I think, for like all my spirituality for sure. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're already pretty spiritually warm in the conversation here, but I'm going to pass this buck off to Benny Boy for you to ask my little warm-up questions.
Yeah, so we have 5 warm-up questions here. Mm-hmm. So what do you think your best religious experience has ever been? What is the highlight, like the high point in your spiritual or religious life?
So we just celebrated the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur like 2 weeks ago, and the most I've ever connected, the most time in my life I've ever felt connected to a creator, God, spirituality, Judaism as a whole was when I was living in Israel in rabbinical school. Yom Kippur at the western wall of the Second Temple, so like the Kotel, like the holiest site in Judaism. Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar, at the holiest site in the world for Judaism, like 100,000 plus Jews praying. It's been like 6 or 7 years since then, and it's still like absolutely that's like the most
that's some cool
like
stuff.
The coolest experience I've like watching. Every year it's like I'll watch friends who still live there, like rabbis who are still there, like post pictures and videos of it, and it's like right back to it, like
that's cool.
The fact that I had experienced this is like the
knowing
coolest,
you were there.
Yeah, the coolest thing I've ever experienced in terms of like religion or spirituality for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really like an intense experience.
Intense, very special.
In all the best ways.
It's like a place where Jews have been praying for like 3,000 years.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's pretty intense.
So to go to the darker side, what do you think the worst experience you've had with religion in general is?
It's hitting deep.
Yeah, for sure. Bam. So when I was living in Israel, I was in 2 different yeshivas. So I was in 2 different Torah schools. Okay. The first was very orthodox, very by the book, very traditional. And at that point in my life, I was only that observant for like a year or 2, so I didn't really fit in. And there was this experience in the neighborhood in Jerusalem. It was a very Orthodox neighborhood. I was skateboarding without a shirt on and just got berated by some neighborhood people, just like yelling at me, cursing at me, throwing stuff at me, and all while like down the street I'm like studying the same stuff they are, like living the same way they are, and it was just this like. To see that, because I think extremes live
disparity.
Disparity, and like extremes live in every like religion, faith, cultural belief, like every sect of society. There's always like the extremists, and like to actually see it firsthand in the Jewish community and in Jerusalem was like pretty dark. I was like, whoa, and that's why that was one of the reasons why I ended up leaving that school and I went to a more cultural, spiritual school after that. But that experience was pretty dark.
A little bit like, would you say it's faith shaking even?
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. And then like here, not to do 2 answers to the question, but I went to a public school in the area, and I started to become more religious when I was in high school, and like I don't know if I talked about this last time on the podcast or not, but I think that I've experienced firsthand some more anti-Semitism than I think anybody ever should have to face. So I had some really dark days of like people like taking my yarmulke off and like throwing it on the ground and just like calling me like slurs slurs to Jews, and really intense like dark days. And that was face shaking in terms of like what I'm doing feels really good, but it's getting all this backlash and like what is wrong with like my religion? What's wrong with me? So those were some pretty dark days of like being like trying to be this overly religious guy in this public setting, and like wasn't that well received. So those were some pretty dark days too.
I also think relating to your first experience, the most like sometimes the most pain or most hurt we have comes from people who are closest to us, or at
Absolutely.
least even if they're not close to us, people who you can see as identifying with.
Yeah, it would make
like,
sense. Like you should understand.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it could be easy if they were from a different like faith or background. You're like,
Sure.
oh, you don't really understand.
Yeah, that
But
was
if they're like, no, I understand, and you're wrong.
Yeah, that was a big one, especially in the high school setting, because it's like looking at it from their perspective, like I went to Israel for the first time in between 8th and 9th grade, so middle school and high school, and that's where I had this first like religious experience. Like I want more of this in my life, you know, and like so I sort of became like the outside perspective was I became religious overnight, right? So like a big part of it wasn't like the non-Jews in the school. A big part of it was like the other Jews in my school, like stuff like fake Jew and stuff like that was like, don't you understand? Like why is this coming from you?
Why do you care? Like,
Yeah, why do you care anyway, man? I remember this experience one time on the bus. Someone was like, "You don't even know the 10 Commandments, man," and I was like, "There's 613 jokes on you." But yeah. So those are some pretty rough experiences, and like at the time, it was like almost like easy to blame the Judaism part. It was like this didn't happen before I was like religious, and now it is.
If these are like the most Orthodox Jews and you're being berated by them, what does that make you?
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure. Yeah. So yeah, those are some dark times.
I thought I was gonna sneeze.
We know.
Gesundheit.
Nah, it passed.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry about that. Sorry
I'm
about
warm.
my sneeze interruption.
Yeah.
I'm warm.
Oh, we got more questions.
I know.
Here, I'm gonna pass it out. Number two.
So that was a combo. Number
Was it
number
combo?
one, number one was a slash.
Whoa.
That was a slash.
That's
Okay, if you died tomorrow,
Ugh.
if you died tomorrow, you're dead.
Yeah.
What would happen? Heaven, hell, darkness, reincarnation.
and I guess you'd say what? How about a two-parter? What would you say
Another
from the
two-parter.
Judaism part of you?
Okay.
What do Jews believe about the afterlife in general?
Yeah.
And what do you personally believe? Where
Okay.
are you on that?
Cool. I think I line up with like 90% of the Jewish belief with that. So if I were to die tomorrow, I would go to the next world, the world to come. Call it heaven. We call it the world to come. Jews don't really believe in eternal damnation for anybody. So like hell isn't really like a thing.
Okay.
It's like really hard to go there. Yeah, so if I died tomorrow, I'd go to the world to come. And I think what I believe would happen there is everything I've experienced, every human being I've experienced with, every animal, everything I've ever experienced in my 26 and a half years of life, I would experience all of that again at the same time and just being like this eternal bliss of like knowing what I went through. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
I earlier, not today, but a while ago, did some research on like Judaism and what they believe in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was really hard for me to find like what
Yeah.
they actually believe.
Yeah.
It was just hard for me to ask.
Yeah.
Because our religion has a very like almost too clear picture of
Yep,
what happens
sure.
when you die.
Yeah.
So I think I came into it with some external expectations of like, okay, well they're gonna have what happens when you die.
No,
In
no,
Jewish
yeah.
belief.
A lot of it is. And I feel like in Judaism, a lot of the focus is more so like that's not the important question, right? What happens after you die? The important question is like how are you living, right? That's like where the focus is.
Right.
And like there's this concept in Judaism where I break it down. And it's not an original idea. Like I've heard some dude talk about it years and years ago, and it just stuck. Like there's this like spiritual ladder in Judaism that in this life, my job is to like climb that ladder, right? Be a good person, follow like just being like.
That's number one.
Genuinely be a good person, right? Like don't worry about like all the mitzvot and all the commandments and everything that's complicated. Just like today, am I like stealing? Am I loving people? Am I treating everybody kindly?
Commandments come into play.
Yeah,
But
be a good person and like go up the rungs of the spiritual ladder, right? And when I die, if my soul, right? So in Judaism, we believe like my soul is a part of God. God like puts His soul, part of Him, into all of us. That's why we're like we're so loved and like just like innately. That's why everybody goes on, right? If my soul's ready to go on to the world to come, beautiful. If not, soul comes back and goes through it again and just continues climbing up that ladder.
okay.
So some souls are here for like long times. Some souls are they're ready to move on. So
Okay.
yeah, if I were to die tomorrow, I'd go to the good place.
It's a good place.
I hate that show.
HBO.
Not referencing that show.
All right,
But
moving on.
Moving on.
Quick one. Yes or no answer. Okay. Do puppies go to heaven? Do puppies go to the world to come? Yes or no answer. You can't explain yourself.
Yes.
Okay. You had to think about it.
The reason I had to think about it is because there's like a really strict view of that in Judaism that I really disagree with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's just like, so I was just like, well, they definitely do. Because whenever I think about the concept, like, that old information jumped in my head, like, no, of course they don't. But it's like, no.
It did lighten the mood.
They're little,
It could have gone the other way.
I think,
it was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
They actually go to hell. That would not have lightened
Puppies
the mood.
are
yeah, because like I think like I had like this dog Angel from like when I was like 4.
Well, his name's Angel. So
Yeah. Like she was like 17 or 18 when she died. Like I had her my entire life. If I were dead tomorrow, she'd be up in heaven with me playing catch and stuff. So yeah, they definitely do. Yeah,
Nice.
they definitely.
Our other host Richard is real big on animals all being flesh robots.
Dude, that's sort of the Jewish approach. Like they don't have neshamas, they don't have a soul.
Yeah.
They're like creatures.
I kind of think that way too. But I think if you go to heaven and like that is helpful to you in your path and helps you throw love at something and feel love and connect and helps you in your life and is a good thing for you, yeah, you're gonna have a dog in heaven.
Yeah.
If you want a dog in heaven, yes.
Yeah.
If you want a specific dog, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. If you had to pick a new faith system, what's your number 2? You cannot be Jewish. Can't identify that way. You have to pick a new one.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So atheist, agnostic, or just no label.
No. Yeah. I just explained you can't separate me from my Jewishness.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, though. Like,
No,
what
yeah.
is the world where you're not? If you had to.
I don't know.
That's fair. I can cut that question.
You can keep that question. I don't know.
So the answer is just no.
The answer is no. I refuse to comply.
Yeah, I mean, also I feel like one, I don't know enough about any other religions or faith systems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
an
fair.
interesting question.
Well, because I was thinking about, I was like, because I really enjoyed Buddhism
Uh-huh.
as like a concept, as a philosophy.
Sure.
Like, it seems like a healthy, loving lifestyle.
I agree.
Like, okay, maybe Buddhism's my number 2.
Yeah.
So I wonder, and then my thought train was like, I wonder if other people have
Interesting.
ideas of what their number 2.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever thought about it.
Yeah, well, I think so. I've sort of teetered back and forth. I've always thought, okay, if I'm not, part of, if I wasn't part of the new church, yeah, I would say either Catholicism or Judaism, because the long-standing tradition really appeals to me. I just think that it would be so beautiful to be a part of something that was so long-standing.
Sure.
I mean, Judaism's like 4,000 years old,
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's amazing. Or
Yeah.
you might say 6,000. I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Since the
Close to
original
six.
covenant. I
Yeah, the
suppose, with
original
Adam.
covenant. Yeah. Yeah, like 4, almost 5, I think.
So maybe I can word Luke's question in a different way that won't be a no. So not you personally, but if you, as an outsider, just looking at the world religions, could you rank them in terms of the ones that are most interesting to you, or that you're like, oh, that's pretty cool?
Or the ones that are right and the ones that are wrong.
Definitely not that, because I definitely don't think that anybody's right or wrong.
You're just like, oh, top 3, maybe top 3 outside of Judaism, like interesting religion.
Buddhism's really, really cool.
Yeah. She's like making a March Madness bracket.
Oh my gosh.
What would you love to watch a documentary?
I really. This might be a weird answer for you guys because of who you are, but like, I would watch a documentary about the new church.
Okay.
I think like it's pretty cool. What I've heard is interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I don't understand, which I like. It's like, wait, but what? Wait, what? So I'd like some more understanding of that. Yeah. I don't know many other religions.
I also think it's probably a good practice not to compare the religions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little counter
Personal
to
interest.
the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've spent the time I have spent looking at other religions. It's been like Buddhism really fascinates me, and like the new church is really interesting. Since I've like been a part of this community for a couple years now. Yeah.
In a way, I think Judaism's super cool because I've always enjoyed the like grounded sort of practices of like even of Islam too. Like I really like having a prayer rug and having to
Sure.
pray X amount of times a day. Like,
Yeah.
and like connecting physically to the ground with your whole body. Hinduism has some cool stuff with that too.
Yeah.
And so Judaism, like all the practices and cultural traditions, I find really grounding.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great way of connecting to something that can be intangible.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's like a great way of like connecting to source. I talk
Yeah.
about with Will Merrill. If either of you know Will, we talk a lot about like the significance of like Will as a member of this community. His favorite practice in Judaism is the Passover Seder. Like this is like a tradition that's been happening for like 3,000 years. Like every year, like just like that. Like when I sit down with like my family for Seder, it's like, wow, yeah, like our people have been doing this for a really long time, like more than probably any other practice in Judaism, other than just like talking to God. But like this like real sit around, have a table, have a Seder, and like for me, like I feel like connected to source probably most at that time, you know, and like all of those like, yeah, there's something about like having like a specific prayer book, you know, like having these prayers that like, you know, like there's time for personal prayer, but then also there's just these prayers that I've been saying for hundreds and thousands of years in some cases, and like connecting to like, you know.
I made a prayer wheel once, one of the other ones. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, in like a summer camp thing. It's kind of
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun time. Well, Chad, you've answered our questions.
That was it.
So
You guys are pretty
Yeah,
efficient.
Ben, do you want to intro?
Yeah. So we just want to talk about the idea, at least, you know, in Christianity and in the new church, it's this theme of salvation. Is the term salvation in that way used in Judaism?
No.
Or I know redemption, like,
Sure.
you know, what would you say the closest thing is to salvation in Judaism? Right? Keeping covenant, right? Something along those lines?
Yeah.
All right, that's our podcast, guys.
Such
Thank you
a-
so much for
it's
listening.
such-
Make sure to follow us on social media.
It's a very weird concept.
Well, maybe to back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So the new church idea of salvation is very different from like the stereotypical Christian idea
Okay.
of salvation.
Cool.
Like very far away from any kind of faith alone. Like you say Jesus Christ is your savior and you're good. Not really what we think.
Okay.
Right, it's
It's a new
Protestantism.
church thing.
Yeah, Protestantism. Not we don't subscribe to that necessarily. And I was kind of wondering about it because a lot of people say that like belief saved them when they were like in a low place and they turned to a higher power. So I'm wondering how when you were like going through substance abuse, what your turnaround was like, and if that felt like a salvation to you, and how
Sure.
your faith played into that.
Yeah, I was
And then I also definitely want to talk about Judaism and
Sure.
salvation.
Yeah. So like when Ben told me about like the proposed theme for this, I like was thinking about that. Where like the idea that a religion saves people is bizarre to me, but the concept that a belief saves someone, that I get with 1,000%, and that's what I think does save people. This, and if we use directly, let's talk about like my addiction, right? I think the concept of believing that I could get better, that's like a huge part of it, right? This concept that something greater than me by myself, right, can restore me, right? That concept is so pivotal for the recovering addict, alcoholic, any of that kind of stuff. So I think that belief being a turnaround, because like for years, all I believed in was myself. All I believed in was that this drink or this drug is going to change the way I feel, fix the way I feel. And that always got me the same thing over and over and over again, right? Sure. So I think belief that something greater than me was present is like necessary. And like even using the word saved feels weird, and it feels like right. Like yeah, I think like a belief, like yeah, like a higher power saved me for sure. Like believing, maybe allowing myself to believe, right, definitely saved me from this like self-destructive, never-ending cycle, right? So I think the power of belief is really powerful and like really important, right? See what I did there? Yeah, so I think the yeah.
Cool. So how do in the Jewish faith then you have the world to come, right? And you don't believe in really damnation. So
Yeah.
maybe because there's not damnation in the same way, being saved doesn't.
Yeah, that
really
concept doesn't really no one has to be saved from the jump, right? From the spark of life, right? That's divinely designed, right? Like boom, God like puts Himself in you, and boom, you're here, right? Because there's no need to be saved. We're already, and that's not just, to be clear, that's not just Jews, right? That's everybody, every human being on the planet, right? From the start, there's this divine thing that happens. It's like you're already saved. To be like, you know, it's like you're already. Nothing has to happen for you to be loved by or cared for or watched after God, right? Like it's already happening from the jump. And even if you distance yourself from that, right? So the years that I was distant from a creator, or like wasn't like a practicing Jew, or all those different times, even though I wasn't dancing, right? God was still there, right? That's like this like belief, like absolutely, no matter what. So like, and that's sort of like the belief for like everybody, no matter what, you know, you're this divine creation. So yeah, the concept of like having to do something, right?
Something to merit, you know.
Yeah,
salvation.
right, yeah. That doesn't really exist.
So what about on the flip side? Is there, in your understanding of Judaism, is there something that people can do to lose or to ruin that gift of that divine spark, right, of creation that sort of includes...
Yeah, like murder.
Right.
Not to laugh, but yeah, like...
Well, so for example, it sounds like what you're saying is we're automatically sort of, you know, predestined to be a part of God's creation, right?
Yeah, still not.
But you can ruin it.
Sorry, continue.
But there are things we can do to sort of ruin our place in that. That creation,
I think it's
in that plan.
I think that there are. I think that it's really, really tough. Like I think that it's like really tough. Like this might be like an extreme thing to say. I've heard people like really go back at me with this and like be like disgusted or like offended that I would say something like this. But I'm going to say it anyway because this is the Spiritable podcast. Yeah. Like I think God loved Hitler still. You know what I mean? Like I really truly believe that.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with you that nothing can ruin God's love.
Yeah, and I think that that's what gets to the world to come. God's love. It's not this like you have to do something, right? So I think that it would take a lot, and it sort of goes back to this whole like this idea like the soul goes on and like gets more experiences with this. It's like if like there's a bad life, like the soul continues, and like maybe after like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times of just a soul not getting it, maybe, right? But the idea for me that someone, and maybe it goes back to this foundation of not believing in like any sort of damnation, but like even like not, and that might be the reason for this, but it's a very hard idea for me to take in that you could ruin that. Right? Like I can't really think of like the exact ways you could. Maybe you could, but like it's
a sad thought.
Yeah, it's a sad thought. I don't really believe that that's how a creator would work. Yeah. So maybe it's possible, but it'd be really, really tough.
So this may be a naive question, but
Maybe.
then why even try to be a good person in this life?
Because it feels good.
That's definitely what I believe.
Sure.
But
That's what I think,
if someone's just like, I have next life to worry about it.
I feel like there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
That's on them. Yeah. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I don't know. It's sort of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you? I think that there's like some universal laws that like just like work.
Yeah.
And like
and I
everybody
definitely agree
should
with you.
do that.
Yeah.
And
I am consistently a happier person when I am being a
Sure.
good person.
yeah, you know?
Yeah,
And
100%.
so I think the motivation to do these things, whether it's like just being a good person, right, or it's taking on the covenant in Judaism and all it entails that, whether it's taking on the beliefs and practices of like the new church or Islam, right, doing all that stuff is just, you know, make it feel good.
Yeah.
You know, and like, cool if you do, cool if you don't.
Yeah. It's on you.
Yeah.
Would you say buying into something helps you be a happier, you know, more useful, better person?
I I would think so. I think that some of the people that I know that have bought in are just like so flippin' happy, dude. Like,
Also, because it just removes so much worry and
removes
choice.
doubt
Like,
and-
yep, this is what I am.
yeah. I think a lot too. Like when I started to think like maybe like the Orthodox Jewish world wasn't for me, it'd be like my thought would be like, well, it's not for anybody, right? Like this like young, immature thought would be like, well, it doesn't work for anybody. But that's like obviously not the case, because like if I think personally in my own life, I can think of 20 or 30 people that have been Orthodox their entire life and they're so happy, right? So obviously works, right? Like I don't get it, right? I don't understand how like all these daily practices you have to do make you feel better. So maybe it's just the fact that they buy in, they do. You know, like I know, like I think about like my rabbi when I was in high school, this guy Rabbi Levy, like he was like one of the happiest people I know, like so fulfilled, and like I don't know, wouldn't work for me, but he's bought in and like lives.
So why wouldn't it work for you? Like if it's just a matter of buying in and choosing to.
Maybe if I bought in and totally surrendered, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
what's
have
what's stopping you?
Dude, I really like bacon.
an honest answer.
I really like I really like going out on Friday nights and Saturdays, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think what makes someone else happy isn't always what's going to make you
Sure,
happy.
absolutely.
Like you're buying into your own what you're
Yeah, and that's
developing.
that's what like what I think the purpose is.
Yeah.
I think my purpose is to find what makes me fucking happy. It's
Right.
my life. I slipped one in.
We'll bleep it.
I knew it was gonna happen once.
But there is, you have to delineate that from just like, oh, living your own life and doing whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
For sure.
Because
Yeah.
like, and I think we talked about what happiness is before in this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, there's true happiness and then like a sort of false, like, it's not really happy, it might
Yeah.
feel good.
The illusion of happy.
Having fun versus
Yes.
like
So,
Yeah.
this true fulfillment that you get.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to talk about salvation from the New
Yeah,
Testament?
I
You
would
know, it's-
love to hear about that.
Yeah, it's on the one hand it's super tricky, on the other hand it's really simple. Yeah, well, so as a new church person, I draw my beliefs from that framework, and my understanding is that on the one hand, salvation comes from being a good person, right? And you could leave it at that, but you'd have all sorts of asterisks and things that you could talk about. I'd say the thing that differentiates my belief from, say, a Lutheran belief or Protestantism is I don't think that I get saved by believing in a framework. It's like what you said earlier. You said it seems weird to you that a religion saves someone.
Yeah.
And I really like what you said about God sort of just wanting us all to be saved. It's sort of like it's a given. Because there is this idea that I hold that on the one hand, I think we are all literally predestined to go to heaven, to a good afterlife. But there are ways that we can sort of mess that up. If you think about like a big river, we're sort of all floating down the river, but we can take a paddle and be like, nope.
Sure.
We're going over there and we're going to jump into that, prickly bush over there because we like that better. So the idea of salvation, I don't believe in faith alone.
Yeah.
I believe that to be saved, I have to be a good person. And there's, on the one hand, like I said, there's a lot that goes into that. How do you be a good person? We all have different ideas of what right and wrong are. For as many people as there are, there's that many beliefs about what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
It's like your experience in Israel, people yelling at you, you're like, I'm not doing anything
They
wrong.
thought they were being, they thought they were right. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot. Is there anything that you want to add personally? What's the most important thing to you?
For whatever reason, my mind was in a deep analogy of us just being like gluttonous consumers as human beings, and like we have these conveyor belts of like donuts coming at us that we need to like swipe away, and sometimes we accidentally eat the donuts, and then we gotta like consume some carrots and broccoli.
It's like playing Fruit Ninja.
I think that's. But I liked your. I initially kind of like recoiled at your predestined for heaven because I tend to steer away from predestination as an idea.
Yeah, it's a loaded term.
But I like that we are all created with the intent to go to heaven, like in our belief of heaven. And it's kind of, and then from that point we have a choice whether to choose that lifestyle to lead toward heaven or to choose a darker lifestyle that leads us to hell. And ultimately we go where we are happy in our
right. Yeah, that's a concept that I've talked with
Yeah.
I mean, Richard talked a lot about it last year. This concept of like being happy with what hell offers, and that's why you go there.
Yeah.
Very interesting concept to me.
But again,
Yeah.
I would say, again, going back to happiness, true happiness is more kind of God's way.
Right,
and false
sure.
happiness
Yeah,
is
yeah.
more your ego's way or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I definitely see salvation as something that does not happen within an instant. Like you can decide to start changing yourself in a moment, but then that change is gradual. And so any type of salvation is basically the same thing as just your life process of trying to be a good person. Is your path of salvation.
Yeah, and I mean, what that looks like, there's a big concept that I call your ruling love. And I get that straight from my religion. And your ruling love essentially is, at the core, what is your highest preference? What do you want out of life? And you could sort of say that there are 4 main paths that you want to take, 4 main loves. Okay. And that would be, at the very base level, you love yourself more than literally anything else, right? So if push comes to shove, if you could get $100,000, but in the process it makes someone's life absolutely miserable, you'd take it because that's what's important to you, right? That's a pretty dark place, but there are people who that's sort of their default. And I think that followed to the sad conclusion is not salvation because they just only want to feel good, and they don't care about what it takes to get that, right? And I think in some ways that's actually sort of a sickness, right? Because it should make us happy when other people around us are happy, right? That's sort of like part of the default. Like we're all enjoying this conversation because, hey, look at this community. This is great. So there's like, you love yourself. And then there's sort of like a less bad, but still, not great, which is sort of, it's called love of the world. It's like, we just like material stuff, right? All this material stuff is more important to me than making my friend feel good. Yeah. Saying, hey, you know what? I really enjoy your friendship. That's a really cool thing. Or, I'd rather just focus on getting money so I can buy a sweet sports car and, hang out with some hot chicks. Whatever it is, that's sort of love of the world. All of the pleasures that you get.
Sensory stuff.
Yeah, just sensory stuff from the world. And then there's love of the neighbor, and then love of God. Sure. Right? And love of God is sort of this esoteric, like, how do I do that? Interesting. And you can get bogged down in how do I love God? The answer
it's complicated because you love God by loving the neighbor.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just something. That's like
that's the simple answers.
That's like the. That's like the most important thing. I hearing all of that stuff. I think where I would agree with and where I would relate to is that whole concept of like loving thy neighbor. There's this famous piece of Talmud, which is like a Jewish law and tradition, and Kabbalah, which is like Jewish mysticism. There's this story about this guy who asked this rabbi, can you explain all of Torah to me, like standing on one leg with like your hands behind your back and like all of this stuff, like thinking the rabbi can't do it. Like this guy's like trying to find like to disprove like Torah, right?
Yeah.
And the rabbi simply is like, love others as you would want to love yourself. Yeah. That's it. And like look at Torah's this huge book, right? There's like I can't even tell you how many laws, right? So many laws. There's like all these commandments and mitzvot, but like at the core, like love others, love your neighbor. That's it. Everything else is like commentary. That's like I think that's exactly what the rabbi says. He's like everything else in Torah is just but commentary for this basic principle.
I forget which Jesus story it is specifically, but there's a very similar one where someone's like, "What's a secret to getting to heaven?" He's just like, love the neighbor and love your God as yourself. It's like it's not that hard. Like he sums it all up in a couple of days.
Yeah. The guy asked me. I followed all the commandments. Yeah. There is a lot of stories. And also one story.
I don't know.
Whoa.
This is just like cocked weirdly to one side. Like half of your body was in the shot.
Oh my.
I must have bumped it when it was over here. That sucks. Is unfortunate.
Whatever. God's plan.
Well, I hope
Ben, do you want to come on camera and talk
you should
and
come on camera
apologize.
and apologize.
Ben, get over
Has
it.
anyone
Ben!
ever seen
Quick
Ben behind
pause
the
from
camera?
our-
Hey, quick pause. Hey,
Quick
what's up?
pause.
Hey, it's me, Ben.
Are you in the
I work
shop?
behind the camera. Yeah. Hey, Chad, what's up? How are you? I've been having a great time watching the podcast, but you haven't because this shot from this angle I bumped when we swapped. We have to do a thing where we stop the camera recording for a minute, and I did, and I bumped it, and so you've just seen awkward Chad shoulder for maybe the last 20 minutes or so.
Nice.
So glad that's over now. Thank you for joining us on the Spiritable podcast.
But you know what? You said it was God's plan, and now has the audience ever seen you Ben behind the camera?
My face on other content.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
So maybe this wasn't God's plan.
So that was a really
Maybe.
special moment for them. I feel like
Yeah.
all the followers.
We'll see.
So, Chadley,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff about the word salvation that makes me squirm or that I dislike.
I agree. Yeah, I
Is it-
sort of hear it, and it's just like,
Yeah, I don't know.
But I can
I don't know.
paraphrase. I can paraphrase one of
Trying to
my
decipher.
favorite quotes from Swedenborg.
Please do.
Completely paraphrased.
boom, love
And
paraphrasing.
It is one of my favorites because it just has so much mercy in it, and that's now this is probably within the context of Christianity, and it's talking about how there's so many different beliefs, right? Everyone in Christianity, there's so many different flavors, and it said, at the core of it, what the most important thing actually is charity. Right? And if charity simply means loving your neighbor.
Yeah.
Like genuinely wishing good things for the people around you.
Yeah.
And when you do that, if that was the center of every religion, then they'd all be one church.
Right.
It would be one religion.
Sure.
It would be the same faith. And the differences of opinion about who God is and
Sure.
all these things wouldn't matter
matter.
nearly as much.
Yeah.
So you're saying that like salvation is charity sort of deal? Is that
Yeah,
where you-
good people go to heaven.
Yeah.
At the core, that's my belief. And is life sometimes complicated? Yeah. Are there bumps in the road? Yeah. There are a lot of things in my life that make me want to be a less good person. Yeah, because sometimes there's things that are more insidious, right? You don't realize that you're being selfish, but selfishness is unfortunately something that I think is inherent in human beings.
Yeah.
I see it in myself.
Sure,
all the
absolutely.
time.
I mean, think about a baby. A baby is just all selfishness.
Yeah, just
It has
by
to be.
basic
It wouldn't
needs.
survive.
True.
Yeah,
I'm gonna cry all the time when I need.
until I get
True.
food. Yeah, in a way we
It's
do
not like
that.
spiritual selfishness. It's like just a survival thing.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
not
just
stuff.
the other night, I came home. I was feeling really stressed out about a lot of work I had to get done, and I get home and I realized, without even asking my wife, like, "Hey, how was your day?" It was instantly just, "Hey, I have all this. I'm really stressed," and
Sure.
and I was sort of just using her as a vehicle to get comfort, right? And you could say like, well, that's of course, like when you're really stressed, you need to reach out to someone who loves you. But at the same time, it was entirely self-centered. I was only thinking about how I was feeling, not how she was feeling. Maybe she had a really stressful day.
Sure.
Maybe this is stressing her out right now. So, and is that the worst thing in the world? Is that damning? No, I don't think so. But it's something that you want to watch out for. Like,
Sure.
why are you doing the thing? So intention is a big thing for me. Is why do we do the things that we do?
Sure.
Is it because we want people to be happy, or is it because we want to make ourselves happy?
Yeah. Yeah, selfishness is a big thing, and I think like ego comes into play with that.
Yep.
And I think like a lot part of like that human experience of like having these like free will driven lives, and it's just like trying to figure life out is like these big questions. It's like we think a lot, and like there's so much thought going on, and like selfishness is a thing is for sure really easy for me. I think for a lot of people I know in like 12-step work. At the end of the day, we have like a daily inventory we take, and like one of the questions is, where was I selfish today? And like, I don't know if I could ever honestly answer that question. Nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
It's definitely the goal for sure. Definitely like days where there's like 20 answers of where I was versus like maybe I was just selfish like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But like that sort of that intentional awareness of like, what is I think to Keith at the dorm talks a lot about just like, what kind of man am I being today?
Yeah.
Right? Like, today, what am I trying to do? Right? And I think that goes back to the question, or like if I died tomorrow, where would I go? feel like that has a lot to do with how I live today.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much power in that. Like, today is the day you decide the man you want to be.
Sure.
Today is the day you can embark on the road to salvation.
Sure.
Today is the day you stop doing the bad things that have held you down for a long time.
Yeah.
And then
Like-
tomorrow you might mess up again, and then
absolutely.
then you decide again. No, that's
Yeah.
not what I want to be.
Right.
Today is a new day.
Yeah, I think that, like, personally, I definitely don't want to talk a lot about it. Like, I was in a pretty serious accident 2 weeks ago, and I was talking with Ben in the car earlier. Like, my life flashed before my eyes, right? Like, it was really intense. And, like, this dude, one of my friends from recovery, asked me, like, yeah, man, it's like, what do you want to change? And, like, I really had, like, this, I've had a lot of clarity of, like, yeah, what are those little things, right? The little things, like the stuff like pokes you, you know, that's not the stuff like weighing on your shoulders, but the little stuff that, like, adds up over time. What's like the stuff you want to stop doing, right? What kind of human being do I really want to be? Like, I came like that close, and it's like, yeah, there's like a lot I want to change. Like, today,
Any
you know,
highlights that you don't want to talk about?
dude, white lies,
What'd you
little
say?
white lies, right?
Yeah.
Like, I woke up at 1:30, right? I didn't wake up at 1:30, okay? I woke up at 2. Right, I was in bed until 2 o'clock. But like that, there's those little white lies, right?
Just like little twinges on the truth.
For no reason, right? But they add up for sure, right? Yeah, it's just like that idea of like, yeah, this whole like today makes me like, what's the stuff I want to stop doing? What's the stuff I want to do more of?
Yep.
It's like I've been living in that realm the last like week and a half, just like thinking a lot about that concept of, yeah. I've been talking about it a lot, like that whole question. If I were to die tomorrow, would I be happy with the life I lived? And I think that I've been guilty. I've been asked that question a lot in like men's work and just like spiritual stuff. I've been asked that question a lot the last couple of years, and I think I can romanticize that idea and that question, right? Like, yeah, I'm overall pretty happy. Yeah, tomorrow I'm happy with the life I lived. But then it's like you come there and it's like, I think like the mature answer is no, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more I want to do and there's a lot more I want to stop doing.
I think that ties back to salvation for me, because I think that word, there's something so fantastic about it. Something so out of control, like romanticized about the idea of salvation.
It's almost magical sounding.
Yeah, it's almost magical.
Sure.
It's not like it doesn't hit that nitty gritty. For me at least. I'm sure it does for other people, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's some of my dissatisfaction with the word is it's overly romanticized or fantastic. That it, I can't look at that and it doesn't embark change on me for some reason.
And when you say fantastic, you mean like fantasy.
Yeah, like actual
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Like fantastic in the end of the day.
No, I want to go back to something you just said though, like 20 seconds ago that I love.
And we probably should also round up, wind down at some point. But
Oh, right as soon as I
No, I'm just saying
You just got so passionate.
let's have that be our peak. And then we move on.
I'm happy to have that because he said there's so much more that I want to do with my life, and there's so much more that I want to not do.
Yeah.
Which I think is such an important piece of it. People think about, oh, I want to do good, and you're like, oh, but I also really want to stop being that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
There's those little things you're like, that's not who I am.
Yeah,
it's not to focus on the negative, but
Uh-huh.
but I think it's a useful way. Self-reflection, meditation.
Yeah.
Being able to really see like, okay, who am I and why, and who can I be? How do I do that?
Yeah.
By not being that person.
Right.
Oh
by
man,
not
I
doing
like
those
that.
things.
That's good.
I
That's good
loved
stuff.
it.
Yeah. The whole concept of like, who am I? Who do I want to be? And what in my life isn't fitting in that right now? Like, what isn't serving me anymore?
Yeah.
What doesn't add up anymore?
What's
right?
getting in the way?
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I like that a lot. Because I feel like for me personally, it's like I'm at a cup, right, and I'm full right now, let's say, and I see all these things like, oh, I want to be that, I want to be that, I want to be that, but I don't always think about, oh, I need to get some stuff out of this cup to be able to add these things in. So I get frustrated that I'm not doing all of these, but maybe it's just because I'm not concentrating on getting rid of some stuff. Like to make room for new good stuff. I can't just keep adding more without making room for it. I really like that.
Yeah.
That got to me.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff right there.
It's like having a clean room. It's like putting a nice plant in your window when there's just stuff all over your floor. It's not going to make your room look better by adding that little plant there. It's like, okay, now you have a plant and a super messy room still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I lose sight of the room for the plant. You know.
Yep.
You done me good there, Ben. That's
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Boom.
It's an interesting analogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it.
So
So
clean your room.
Clean your room.
Clean your
room.
secret to salvation: clean your room, guys.
Who are we? Jordan Peterson?
Hell.
Okay.
I gotta wind this down. All right. Do we have any more
gotta wind
thoughts?
this down. It's not all about you, Rich. Welcome to Luke's podcast.
Remix. Welcome to Chad's podcast.
Do something. Take me away.
Yeah, well, it's been a lot of fun having
Yeah, I
you.
agree.
I got a lot. That was the most reserved agreeance I've ever had. Like,
Oh,
yeah, it was an interesting hour to spend with you two.
I love you so much. Wow.
I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Luke needs to be on timeout for a minute, but I genuinely enjoyed having you here. I didn't know you that well. You're sort of a guy whose face I've seen,
Yeah.
on the Facebooks and
The
such.
Book of Faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great, like, first real interaction to be like, boom, let's jump into some real topics, right?
Yeah.
So, like, real
Cut the small
conversation. Cut the small talk.
Just
I hate it
dive into
anyway. I don't know how to do it. It's like,
Yep.
I love some small talk, man.
I still, like, I remember, like, getting, when I first got clean, it was like, I just didn't have, like, the social skills for small talk. And I was like, eventually I'll be able to get it. And it's just, I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's just like, nothing bugs me more than someone asking me, like, small talk questions. Like, it's just, ugh.
I think there's a way to do small talk where you actually convey that you care about someone in the answers. Because it's not just like, oh, I need to fill social space. Hey, crazy, it's been raining like nuts. Like, oh, come on, really?
Ugh, yeah. I'd
But
much
like, if
rather
you go over and you start to like, we're gonna have a little bun. Like, did you see the chips over there? They're the stalest things I've ever put in my mouth. Like,
yeah,
quick, we're creating a
sure.
little like story, or like something like that. We're like, oh, we're in this together. Like there's automatically like something going on when we're really talking about nothing, but you can create a small moment with someone.
As opposed to just
being like, what's your most important spiritual religious
like
experience of your life?
well, see,
that's my speed.
Mine
You
is
need you at a
Zen
party? Let's go right there.
And that's why this podcast is here. But I'm saying, like, in everyday life, not everyone's ready for that.
I know.
You came into this prep.
I don't understand. Point of this, I struggle with small talk because a lot of them people want to do that, and I seem super duper uninterested because I am, because I don't know how to.
Chad just sits down on the train next to a complete stranger. Hey,
Any near-death experiences lately?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
What's the worst experience
Have
of your
you
life?
seen God?
What is your worst experience? Share all your
Yeah.
deep
I just feel like it's just what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just like connection is just like so important, and it's just like I don't know, it's what I want.
Yeah.
So really cool, like first connection piece, like
Yeah.
let's like do this cool podcast and talk about some stuff that normally we might not talk about.
Yeah.
You know,
But that's super meaningful.
super duper.
It's good to reconnect with
charity,
you, my brother.
You know?
Charity in action.
Yeah, charity in action, faith in action, all
Yeah,
that good stuff.
Exactly.
Man.
Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience as we're
Disclaimer: all the Judaism stuff, my understanding of Judaism. It's a super duper old religion and super duper complicated. A lot of people think and interpret and commentary differently.
Yeah.
And it's just a mix of what I understand from the teachers I've learned from and my own reading.
Yeah. It's impossible to like be the voice of one religion.
Yeah, and I just felt the need to like, you know.
I support that.
Yeah, my understanding of Judaism.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
That's all.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it is something that I'm still super passionate about, right? And that's right. It's like we get back to like where my Judaism today. It's like that's something where I still, that part of rabbinical school, that part of like teaching Judaism, teaching Hebrew, teaching Torah, even if it's just like in a conversational lens, like, I still love that, and I still like my heart beats, my stomach feels full, right? Like I'm still really passionate about that stuff, which is cool. Yeah, it's cool. That's all.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ben, you want to try to do the solo outro? See if you
Oh,
can get
man.
this-
Solo outro.
solo outro.
No.
All right. Thank you for watching and or listening to
The Spiritable
like that
podcast.
transition? You didn't like that
It
transition?
was great. It was clean. It was fresh.
All right. You want to go for it?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Well, yeah, Chad, thanks for joining us, and thanks to
pleasure.
the audience for joining us on the Spiritable podcast. If you liked this video, make sure you like the video, literally, and leave a comment below. We'd love to see what you have to say. And
reply to
we'll
every
definitely
comment, so.
reply to every single comment that we get. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram. You can find that at Spiritable Podcast. And Facebook, Grand Human Project. You can email if you're a boomer. But boomers aren't watching this podcast.
Actually,
Yeah, we have
we
some
will-
boomers.
we
We have
will
some
do
boomers.
one
Yeah, that's
of
true.
ANFK accounts.
If you're a boomer, leave a like. If you're a millennial, smash that subscribe button. If you're a Gen Z, yeet on out of here. Yeet! We don't want you. You're not our target audience.
We do, they are.
They
Gen
are.
Zs are exactly.
What is that?
Please
Gotta
stay.
catch them all. Welcome to
That's
Spiritable Podcast.
not a
I'm
Zoomer
losing
thing.
my mind.
That's from the 90s. That's ours.
Digital monsters.
If you have any questions, feel free to email us also at spiritablepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching and or listening, and we'll see you next time. Ding 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 ding.
Dope. You guys are great.
Sick.